Hello everyone, my name is Mike, and this is The Bored Cyborg. Let's talk about some films that I f***ing hate. Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I am doing something a little bit different. This channel is all about positivity. I don't like to talk about films that I don't enjoy. But today I'm going to do just that. We're going to have a little bit of fun and pick apart some of these pieces of shit, 15 of them in fact, that suck miserably. I like and love a lot of films. It takes a lot for me to say that I hate a film, or for me to rate a film 1 star. There aren't many, but I've compiled a list of 10 here, plus 5 honorable mentions that I'm going to talk about right now. Now, I don't own the majority of these films for obvious reasons. The ones that fall into horror, I do own for obvious reasons, but pretty much all the other ones I just don't have because they suck. I've seen them and I've gotten rid of them. Get out of the collection. I don't want you anymore. Peace. It takes a lot for me to do that. This is coming from a guy who has 7,000 movies plus. So let's dig right in. So my honorable mentions are in no particular order. My first on the list is The Passion of Darkly Noon. This movie sucks so much. And it has Brendan Fraser and Viggo Mortensen. And it sort of tries to be this folk tale kind of thing. And to be honest with you, I don't remember much about it. It follows Brendan Fraser's character who, is being raised by these super strict religious people. He meets Ashley Judd's character and starts to lose his mind. I don't remember much about this movie. All I know is it ended and I was like, well, that was a waste of my time, and it immediately left my collection. So F that movie. I don't remember much about it because it sucked. Next up is Vampiros Lesbos. Now, I know this is probably controversial, but I hated this film. I despised it so much that I shut it off about 2/3 of the way through. The camera work was awful. The storytelling was awful. The acting was abysmal. I didn't pick up what they were trying to put down. Jess Franco is a director who I've still not been able to get into. And I don't think I ever will be able to get into him. He's just one of those directors that I can't vibe with. Vampiros Lesbos is awful. It's about vampire lesbians, of course, and even though those sequences aren't very erotic and exciting or titillating, it's just a boring movie that lacks any real competent skill. I said it. I don't think Jess Franco's very skilled at all. So, I hate that movie. Vampiros Lesbos. Next up is You Don't Mess with the Zohan. This was the first time where I was like, okay, Adam Sandler, I don't think I'm going to watch your movies anymore. It was not only offensive, but it was very bad. Very poorly written, very poorly directed, and it's by the same writers and directors who do all these films, but the film is just, it's irreverent to the point where it's offensive. I hate it. It's not funny, and it was the first film that made me realize that Adam Sandler could do wrong. So, I hate this movie. Another one is Day of the Dead, the remake. Vegetarian zombies. I mean, that's all I really need to say. Steve Miner, what a fall from grace that man has had. I mean, he never made any crazy classics, but he did Warlock, one of my favorites. He did a couple of the Friday the 13th movies, and then he did the Day of the Dead remake, which isn't really even a remake, and it has Nick Cannon. It's really bad. My last honorable mention is Battleship. Just because I saw this movie when it came out. It was a Transformers ripoff. Transformers on the water, essentially. Alien invasion based on a board game with Taylor Kitsch. These all sound like details that I'm literally just making up as I go along. They're not. The film is out there. It's fucking terrible. Terrible as even a time waster. Don't waste your time. Alright, now we're getting into the real shit. My number 10 is the remake of Left Behind, starring Nicolas Cage, who is the only saving grace of this movie. The only reason I could sit down and watch this somewhat ironically is Nick Cage. Now, I will say, this is not one that you could sit down with a group of friends and beer and other legal or illegal substances and have a good time. It's just not. It's boring. It's trying to shove a message down your throat that nobody fucking wants to hear, even religious people. It is just so bad. The effect of people disappearing isn't bad, but essentially it's a rapture film. So God comes down and saves everybody from the end of the world, blah, 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 or doesn't, or I don't remember. Oh yeah, he takes the people, he leaves the ones that aren't to be salvaged on the planet to fend for themselves. So that's what the story is. It's bad. Kirk Cameron's version is better. At least it's more laughable and fun. The worst thing is, this movie was directed by Vic Armstrong, who he directed Army of One with Dolph Lundgren, which is a pretty good action flick, but he is Harrison Ford's stuntman in Indiana Jones and a whole bunch of other Harrison Ford films. Vic Armstrong directed the Left Behind movie. He went from Dolph Lundgren action film, good, to Nicolas Cage fantasy drama religion movie, bad. Really bad. Don't ever watch it. Watch the Kirk Cameron one for a laugh. Left Behind. My number 9 is one that I actually do own, sadly. That is The Gardener. Oh, The Gardener is so boring. And look at that cover. That is one of the most incredible covers for the shittiest film that I've ever seen. This was released by Subversive. Yeah, the film is definitely subversive, but not in good ways. None of this ever happens. In fact, I don't even remember him turning into anything that resembles that. I don't even remember the story because it's so boring, and I saw it last year. Joe D'Alessandro in his first non-factory role, whatever the that means. The Gardener is a flowery mix of 70s mod art film, grindhouse horror, and Italian giallo along the lines of Maestro's Dario Argento. And Lucio Fulci. Oh my god! How dare they? I don't even know what this film is about. I'm gonna read this because this is ridiculous. Ellen and her husband John have a lovely home in Costa Rica. Ellen spends her days gossiping with her best friend Helena. John has a great job, plays golf, and together they host expensive costume parties. You ready to die yet? All their little upper-class home is missing is a nice garden. Enter the mysterious and handsome Carl, who has a green thumb and little to say. Shirtless and shoeless, with his long hair and chest bursting with muscles, Carl has the power to make any plant thrive, as well as any woman. That's all you need to know. The Gardener sucks. I hate it. F*** you, The Gardener. I was so excited to watch this, and so disappointed to watch this. I hate it. My number 8 is a film that I don't own and I will never own, most likely. That is Chernobyl Diaries, unless someone gave it to me. Chernobyl Diaries, I was so excited for. For one, I thought it was going to be a found footage film. That didn't happen. The marketing for this movie was really cool, too. They'd have these little weird shots, like screenshots on the internet of mutated creatures, that are just outside of Chernobyl. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be cool. Like, a group of people are going to wander in and find these mutated thing-like creatures. No, that is not what this movie is at all. It does follow a group of fucking morons that go into Chernobyl to explore. The best scene in this film is when a bear attacks them, a CG bear. That is the best part of the movie by far. About the 50-minute mark, we finally find out who the creatures are, and they're just humans that were there who are being disfigured by the radiation. The creature design is awful. It just looks terrible. The characters suck. The cinematography sucks. The set is fine because it's fucking Chernobyl half the time. But other than that, this movie. I hate Chernobyl Diaries. It's awful. One of the worst horror films I've ever seen. My number 6 is Wes Craven's worst film, bar none. I mean, by far. Like, this is his second to worst film, and his great films, and then his worst film. I mean, there's a gap like this between them. It's fucking bad. It's a TV movie, granted, starring Paul Sorvino, starring Chiller. This one has some other names, but Chiller is what I know it as, and Chiller's what I have it as. It has a whole bunch of fucking people you don't know and don't care about. Follows a man, a wealthy guy who is cryogenically frozen, and then he wakes up and due to a malfunction, and he's like a soulless killing machine or whatever. But that makes it sound cool. And the movie's not cool. It has no violence, it has no gore, it has no suspense, it has abysmal characters and acting. The script seems like it was written by a sweet potato. It's really bad. Don't ever watch this one. Watch every other Wes Craven film. Every other one. This one you could do without. Chiller. Chiller. Throwing a lot of F-bombs around this episode, but it's warranted. Number 5, speaking of F-bombs, this movie. I hate this movie. I was excited to see it when it came out. I really love Jackie Earle Haley as the casting choice. Would I have preferred to see Robert Englund? Yes, but I understood, even my younger 20-something-year-old mind understood that sometimes you gotta pass the torch. Jackie Earle Haley isn't the problem with this film. It's the script. It's all the other characters. All the teenage characters are just fodder. And I know it's a slasher, they should just be there to be killed, but not even as memorable as Heather Langenkamp. At least the characters in the original film are memorable. You got the tough greaser guy, you've got Johnny Depp's character, you've got Helen Langenkamp. Nightmare on Elm Street remake throws out all of the things that make a Nightmare on Elm Street film fun. In fact, it vacuums out all of the fun. It is super serial, super serious shit that takes itself way too seriously and doesn't have fun. This is not a fun Nightmare on Elm Street movie. All of the other ones are. This movie sucks. I'm looking forward to the reboot, but it better have nothing to do with this piece of shit. I hate this movie. It sucks. Alright, my number 5 is another Jess Franco film. Poor guy. That is Exorcism. I had the displeasure of watching this last October. I watched the full erotic version, which had an extra 20 minutes of the worst pornography I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, I've seen quite a bit. And it's even worse than Vampiros Lesbos. It's even worse. This one follows Jess Franco as a priest who goes around doing the same thing over and over throughout the entire fucking movie. I kid you not. He's this priest who finds out that these girls that are doing these fake rituals are... He thinks they're demons, so he has to expel the demons from them. And he does this 3 or 4 times. Finds the girls, has a weird orgasm thing, exorcises them, I guess. Not really. Just kind of has sex with them. Exorcises the demons. Rinse and repeat over and over and over. None of the sex in this film even gave me a chubby. It's not erotic. It's not sexy. In fact, the majority of the sex scenes that I remember had old men in them. I'm sorry. I don't want to see a wrinkly ass while I'm watching a pornographic scene. It sucks. I cannot penetrate this man's films. It's my number 5. Next up is a film that offends me on many levels, including personal levels. That is Marijuana, which is somewhere on this pretty funny exploitation madness set. Adults only. Marijuana, not Reefer Madness, which I admittedly haven't seen. Marijuana is one of the worst films I've ever seen. And it does its best to make marijuana look like the devil's herb. And it fails miserably, because the film is ass. I forget the name of the guy who funded all of these anti-marijuana films in the 30s, but he got basically our entire country scared of marijuana, so f*** him. And marijuana is still class 1, right next to heroin and cocaine in this country, which is ridiculous. Alcohol's fully legal, you can go kill yourself with alcohol, but not with marijuana. Marijuana follows a group of kids who smoke crazy Mexican tobacco and go insane and start, treating their parents like shit and not going to school, all things that have never happened in real life. So, Marijuana, I should say, is one of the worst films I've ever seen. I hate it. I hate its message. I hate its filmmaking. It sucks so bad. Probably should be number 1. Marijuana. Not the plant, but the fucking movie. Oh boy, my number 3 is a doozy. I did an entire riff review on this back in the early days of my channel, so feel free to check that out. Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving 3 reviews. That is Thanksgiving 3. The first one is awful. It's one of the worst films I've ever seen. But it has a couple moments that gave me a chuckle. And it might be okay to watch with a group of friends and many alcohol. Thanksgiving 3 is a film that alcohol doesn't do the job. You need the heaviest of painkillers. You need opiates to sedate your ass into a miasma of just emotion and sensation. That's what you need to get yourself through this fucking movie, because it is the most unfunny, irreverent, offensive, rude, and it's hard to offend me, folks, piece of shit movie that I've ever seen. The craft of filmmaking is better than the first one, but that only enables the director to make a worse movie somehow. He has a better camera, better lighting, a little bit more money, but none of that is worth a shit, because this movie throws it all out the window and tells one of the most inane, childish, ridiculous stories ever put to film. Thanksgiving 3 sucks. If you want to hear more about it in a more concise and thought-out fashion, check out my riff review. Go! Next up is number 2. It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst. Second worst, in fact. The Beast of Yucca Flats. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I have no idea what it's about, but I have seen it. 60 minutes long, and it's basically 60 minutes of a piece of shit, awful narrator narrating every single thing that happens in this movie, which, by the way, is very little. It's so boring, so ridiculous. The narrator will be like, the man walks from his car to the edge of the desert, and he looks around, and it's telling us everything that we're seeing. It is so stupid. I hate Beast of Yucca Flats. Tor Johnson's in this. It's the only reason to see it. It is ironically bad to an extent, but watching this alone will make you consider suicide. So, I hate this movie. It's awful. But I don't hate it more than my number 1. My number 1 is a film, again, that offends me on a personal level, and that is Die Hard. And that film is... What the hell's the name of the goddamn movie? Live Free or Die Hard. That's the last Die Hard movie. A Good Day to Die Hard. That's the one. I always get it mixed up with Live Free or Die Hard, which is a passable film. A Good Day to Die Hard is anathema to not only cinema, but to Die Hard as well. Die Hard is one of my favorite films of all time. The third one, I adore. The second one, I adore. The fourth one, I think is okay. But the fifth one is such a vile piece of shit that I don't want it in the collection. And in fact, I don't think I ever will. And you guys know I'm a completionist, and it kind of bothers me that I don't have the fifth one. But the thing is, I don't even consider it a Die Hard movie. Sure, it has John McClane and his son. John McClane apparently didn't know his son was a fucking CIA operative or whatever the fuck he is. It's Die Hard in name only. It's John McClane in character only. It could have just been any random Bruce Willis action movie. It probably would have fared a little bit better. It also has Jai Courtney, who is one of my least favorite actors doing his thing in Hollywood right now. Every film that he's in, he makes less of a film. And he's in this as John McClane's son. The two of them go into Russia and blow a whole bunch of shit up and just go from action set piece to the next action set piece without any exposition or story or anything worth a shit. And by the way, the action is abysmal as well. It's shot like ass. It looks like shit. It's CG. There is some practical stuff, but it just all goes to the wayside for one of the worst scripts that Hollywood has produced in a decade, easily. So, I hate... What's the name of the damn thing? A Good Day to Die Hard. I hate that shit. That movie. Alright, I just want to thank you guys for checking out my list of films that I hate. Top 10 films that I don't like. We all have them. I'd love to hear what your list looks like down below. Feel free to put it together and we can get a discussion rolling as per usual. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg, out. The Stone Cold